Today we begin Unit 13, Statistics. We're covering Lesson 1, Population versus Sample, and Statistical Studies. So we'll be doing pages 442 to 444. Actually, you should have done page 442 already. I'll just check over the fillable answers in just a minute. And the homework is going to be pages 445 and 446. So if you haven't read pages 440 and 441, then please pause the video, take 3 minutes to read it over, and complete page 442. So there are 3 basic methods for data collection: surveys, controlled experiments, and observational studies. Of the 3 data collection methods, controlled experiments are the only way to prove causation. Page 442. Number 1, a statistical survey is used to collect quantitative information from a specific population. Number 2, in a controlled experiment, the researcher will randomly separate, if you would please add the word randomly, will randomly separate the subjects into groups, with one group established as the control group and one or more as the experimental group. In an observational study, the sample population being studied is measured as it is. Number 4, statistics is concerned with the collection and analysis of data. Number 5, the problem with samples is that they may not truly represent the population. Number 6, when a sample is not random, a bias is introduced, which may influence the study in favor of one outcome over the other outcomes. And 7, a good sample must represent the whole population, be large enough to be effective, and be randomly selected to eliminate bias. So now on pages 443 and 444, we're going to look at 5 different scenarios or situations and answer questions based on those. So exercise number 1. Suppose you are the campaign manager for your friend who is running for senior class president. You would like to know what proportion of students would vote for her if the election were held today. The class is too big to ask everyone. There's 314 students. What would you do? State whether or not each of the following sampling procedures should be used. Explain why or why not. So poll everyone in your friend's math class. Should this be used? Well, I don't think so, no. This group would likely contain bias because they are more likely to know your friend. B, assign every student in senior class a number from 1 to 314, then use a random number generator to select 30 students to poll. Yes, this seems like a good situation. Every student in the population has an equally likely chance of being randomly selected. So from the 314, you are getting a good sample. C, ask each student that is going through the lunch line in the cafeteria who they will vote for. I'd say no. This doesn't seem to be a good representation of the senior class. Exercise number 2, for each of the following study descriptions, identify whether the study is a survey, observational study, or controlled experiment. A study investigated whether boys are quicker at learning video games than girls. 20 randomly selected boys and 20 randomly selected girls played a video game that they had never played before. The time it took them to reach a certain level of expertise was recorded. So this is just an observational study. There's no experimental manipulation involved. And of course, you're more than welcome to pause the video and just try these on your own if you like. As your statistics project, you collect data by posting 5 questions on poster board around your classroom and recording how your classmates respond to them. This is a survey. You're simply collecting responses. C, research is done to determine whether taking aspirin regularly helps prevent heart attacks. A large group of male physicians of comparable health were randomly assigned equally to taking an aspirin every second day or taking a placebo. After several years, the proportion of the males who suffered heart attacks in each group was compared. Well, there's definitely 2 randomly assigned groups. There's your experimental and your control group, the placebo. So this is a experiment. Exercise number 3. For the following, is the stated conclusion reasonable? Why or why not? An observational study found a positive relationship between the happiness of elderly people and the number of pets they have. Therefore, having more pets causes elderly people to be happier. This is definitely not a cause and effect because this is not a controlled experiment. So no, causation can only be found with an experiment. You have to remember that only controlled experiments can prove causation. Exercise 4, a researcher wanted to find out whether higher levels of a certain drug given to experimental rats would decrease the time it took them to complete a given maze to find food? A, why would the researcher have to carry out an experiment rather than an observational study? To prove causation, you need an experiment. Describe a controlled experiment that the researcher might carry out based on 30 comparable rats and 3 dosage levels, 0 milligrams, 1 milligram, and 2 milligrams. Okay, so the first thing is that the 30 rats are randomly assigned to your 3 dosage groups. Next, each rat is given the appropriate amount of drug and then timed in the maze. And then the results are recorded and compared. Usually it's going to be the average of each group that would be compared. Exercise number 5, use the following scenarios for problems A through C. So our first scenario, capital A, researchers want to determine if there's a relationship between whether or not a woman smoked during pregnancy and the birth weight of her baby. Researchers examine records for the past 5 years at a large hospital. B, a large high school wants to know the proportion of students who currently use illegal drugs. Police officers in uniform asked a random sample of 200 students about their drug use. C, a company develops a new dog food. The company wants to know if the dogs would prefer its new food over the competition's dog food. 100 dogs who were food deprived overnight were given equal amounts of the 2 dog foods, the new food versus the competitor's food. The proportion of dogs preferring the new food was recorded. So our first question is, which scenario above describes a controlled experiment? What important component is missing in the description? So the controlled experiment is our C, is our last scenario. There's no mention of random assignment. To each group. B, which scenario describes a survey? Will the results of the survey be accurate? Why or why not? Our survey is when the police officers asked a random sample of 200 students about their drug use. So that's scenario B. Will the results be accurate? Likely not. No, because students likely may not answer honestly. It would be different if they were asked if the survey was on paper and was just given to them and not given to them by a police officer. See, the remaining scenario is an observational study. Why have they not performed experiments to find causal relationship in this situation? So that's when they're asking, well, they can't ask a woman to smoke during her pregnancy. That is simply unethical. All right, that's it. And you have the 2 pages for homework. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.